I always tell people that you're more capable than you think you are.
Be original. Don't be like the guy on the radio. Great music will prevail. So I would tell people, make great music. Don't make other people's music. Make your own.
Money don't make me, so I just say, you know what? I just gotta be happy in my life. Build your team. Look around you. Figure out all these parts, because you can't do it all yourself. You're gonna burn out and get tired.
Never burn any bridges. You never know who someone's gonna be.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
Welcome to the Indie Playbook presented by Focus Noise, ad-free until we sell out. Please subscribe on the podcast app, TuneIn, or Stitcher. And today's guest is a very special guest. It's my good friend Jen Deleon, who is a woman of many, many hats. She is a on-air personality. She's a publicist. She's a booking agent. She is a tastemaker. And as you'll see, she has a very good head on her shoulders. She's very open and honest about her successes and failures. And she does a great job of making the best out of every situation, which I think is a very important lesson. And I also think she's very aware that the best is yet to come for her in her career and her personal life. And I think it's very apparent. So please enjoy this episode with Jen. You wear a million hats, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So imagine you're at some sort of industry party and it's loud and you have to describe what you do really quickly so someone can process it. What do you say?
Oh, wait, can I swear?
Yeah, you can swear all you want.
I hate that question because I get that question all the time, and then I kind of just, it depends who's asking me. So it's like if it's someone, say it's like a manager who's saying, oh, what do you do? I'll automatically tell them, hey, I do interviews, because that's something that ties in with them, or I do booking for artists. I wouldn't probably tell them, oh, I do my one-on-ones and I do consulting, because that doesn't apply to them. So I never figured out what to say if I were to sum it up in one sentence. So I just basically ask, well, what do you need? And then I think I can fulfill that need, whatever that is, instead of doing this whole drawn out thing. And then whenever people ask me, I just say, like, look, I'll just send you my deck and then you can just, because then we'll just be sitting here forever. And I don't mean that in a like conceited way at all. It's just really hard to, I never wanted to be stuck in one thing, because I didn't want to be the person that was, oh, that's just the girl who does the interviews. She's just the face of it. And then I didn't want to be, oh, that's just the girl who writes. I always wanted to learn everything, whether it was learning how to edit, learning how to do like press releases, learning how to do booking, learning how to manage like finances and stuff, because I don't like relying on other people if I have to get something done. So that's why I was able to wear so many hats. I just didn't like relying on people. So I still up till this date don't know how to say like, oh, this is what I do.
So do you think it's out of a natural curiosity that you've always had, or were you just in a position where you had to learn to do everything because you were kind of a one-person show? Oh,
no, it was definitely a natural curiosity, because any job I had, it would start with, hey, can you do the interviews? But then while I was there, it was like, okay, we need to send this out to get press. And they're like, who's going to do that? I'm like, oh, I'll just do it. And I figured it out. I didn't go to a class or had somebody train me on how to do it. I just tried it my way, figured out what worked and what didn't work early, and then I started applying that later. So I think it was just more of, I like being in control of stuff when it has to do with me, so that way if a ball's dropped or nothing gets done, I can blame it on myself instead of someone else. So I think it was just a kind of like a pressure that nobody put on me, but it was a pressure I put on myself, where it was like, okay, I want to just be able to do everything. So, because that's what life is. At the end of the day, everyone has their own thing. Everyone cares like about themselves, and you should always make yourself a priority. There's nothing wrong with that. So I was just like, look, everyone has their own lives. Some people might not want to get something done. Some people might not be as passionate about a specific project or a video as much as you are. So just learn to do it on your own. And then it's easier. You can't do everything on your own, but like it's good to know you can if need be. So. Yeah.
And how did you get interested in being on camera in the first place?
I got interested in being on camera literally probably since I was 2. So my mom, I just found this out at the top of this year. My mom told me, she was comparing my brother and I when we were kids. And she's like, you were the one that never shut up. And then your brother was the quiet one that was just very observant. So she told me I was saying full sentences by the time I was 1.5 years. And she's like, you could have conversations and it was weird and I could just leave you anywhere with anybody. Like my dad told me a story about dropping me off at a babysitter for the first time. And I was his first kid. So he was like, he's like, I thought you were going to cry and be sad because you were the kid. But then when I dropped you off, I was like, okay, Dad's going to work. Like, I'll come and get you in a few hours. And you're like, okay. And then I was just on the floor playing with whatever toy that was back then. And he said he started crying because it was like, I didn't want to leave you, but you didn't care. You just, as long as you had somebody to talk to or you could just do your own thing, I could leave you anywhere and it'd be fine. So I have home videos of my parents asking me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always said on TV. So I've known since I was a kid. A lot of people think, like, when they ask me, oh, how do I get into that? I'm like, there's no way of really getting into it. It's like you just have to go after what you're passionate for. If I've known since I was 2 that I wanted to do this and that's all I ever worked towards, of course it was going to work out. So I think it just came from talking to people. People are so different and you can learn so many things from everybody, and I just genuinely enjoy talking because it's just different conversations. No one's the same. So I think that's where it came from for sure.
And who gave you your first big opportunity on camera? And what also kind of a 2-part question, what do you think they saw in you?
So a lot of people think my first big opportunity was Hot New Hip Hop, and it wasn't. I actually, when I was in college, I hosted a Haiti fundraiser for when the earthquakes happened, and I wanted a media sponsor, and then there was a company called Goer Hip Hop. So they just started, they never did interviews, and in my I don't know if it was in the packet or an introduction or a conversation, I said something about wanting to be on camera, wanting to meet Oprah, all this stuff. And they just came up to me after the event and they're like, hey, so we've always wanted to do interviews, but we never got into it and we never had someone to do it. So do you want to just try? So it was 3 of us, Max, Tim, and myself. And we would just scramble to try to figure out how to get interviews, whether that was outside of a store, like at like a listening event. I had to use a fake ID to get into clubs, like so I could do interviews with artists in there. And they really were the ones who gave me my first big break, because if it wasn't for them and even getting that experience, I wouldn't have been able to maneuver and get those other opportunities. Like even when I got my Bulls internship, I got that because I said, can you watch my latest interview with Lance Briggs? That was the first interview I've ever done. I didn't have any other interviews, but I just played it off like, oh, I've been doing this forever. Like, you should check it out. But it was kind of a lie. But Goer Hip Hop was the one who gave me my first opportunities on camera. And then after that, I would say Hot New Hip Hop was the one that, I didn't even know who Hot New Hip Hop was when I started. So it was crazy that they found that. And I think what they saw me Goer Hip Hop was, I think they just saw the passion I had. They could tell I really wanted to do it. A lot of people say they want to do things, but they want to do it for the wrong reasons. And you can always tell that, because some people might want to be a rapper because they see the tour life, they see the jewelry, they see the money and the girls, whatever it is, but they don't really want to do that. They want to do it because they think they know what it's like. So I think they could just tell I genuinely wanted to do that. So they were like, fuck it, let's just try to figure this out on our own. And then that was 3 years of running around Chicago trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So.
Are you a strong believer in the power of attraction?
Yes. I think it's power of attraction and speaking it into existence. The whole speaking into existence, I really realized that once I moved to LA, I realized, well, actually, no, even before that, I was saying a lot of things, and it's really creepy. I have videos. My first YouTube video in 2009, it was the summer after my first year of college. So shot it in the room I grew up in, and in that video, I said, I'm going to start this blog. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to have my own show. And I said I want to meet Oprah one day, and I told her I was going to find her. I just didn't know how. And I said, and I also want to work for the Bulls. And then 3 months after that video, I got called by the Oprah show, and then I did end up meeting her. And then right after that, the Bulls internship happened. And it's like, once those two things happen, I was like, oh shit, I really have to be careful with what I say, whether that's positive or negative, because it ends up coming true. And
Right.
it's creepy, but it's not creepy. It's actually more exciting because it's like I could say right now, like, I want to have my own show. And now I know it's going to happen at some point, even if it takes like 10 years, because I already said it. So I'm very careful about what I say, even in my own head. I'll just be like, you can't, because you project all that stuff. So I totally believe in it.
So why do you think people are so scared to be so bold and say what they want in life?
I think people are scared to say what they want in life or even going after what they really want in life because there's not enough people doing it. You think about, I'm trying to think like of a perfect example. Like you don't hear many stories of people saying like, oh, this was my dream and this is what I went after. And then if you do, it's people who are already at the top, which is why I'm very open about my journey. So they see like it didn't start off with like, oh, she just went to hot new hip hop. Like I grew up, my backyard is cornfields. So it's like
Right.
No one knows my hometown, but I think it's a lot of people don't want to do it because there's not many people doing it where it gives them the courage to know that they can actually do it. They just see the end result, if you will. So if you look at like the biggest artists, you just see that, but you don't have documentation or videos of them when they were living on their friend's couch or they were working a regular job. My first job was Dairy Queen, like,
Right.
and I have that out there, like in my videos. I have pictures of me. So it's like, I think they just don't see it enough. And I think it's also like the world we live in now, what is it? It's you go to school, you get your degree, and then you have to get a 9-to-5, and then you get married, then you have to make sure you have benefits, and that's your life. That's what I feel like 80% of the world does. So I think everyone thinks they have to do that, and they think that when they're on a timeline, when they're getting older, like it's too late. And I think a lot of people think that, which is really sad because I'm about to be 28, but I remember I have journals where I said like, I want to have my own show by the time I'm 25. I'm about to be 28, but I'm not upset that it's not there because I'm still working towards it. And the people don't understand, like, it's a process. People give up because it doesn't happen within 6 months or a year or 5 years.
Right.
So if you don't have the patience and you try to rush it, it's never going to happen. And then people give up when really you should appreciate the process and it's shit taking so long because you can make all your mistakes before you get to that level. So
Right.
Any mistake I made in the last 8 years of doing this, like, I'm prepared now, and that's why it's so exciting because it's like, okay, I don't think there's any other mistakes, whether that's personal or professional, that I can do so that when God takes me to that level, I'm not going to mess it up. So you should be thankful for the long, drawn-out process because you'd mess it up if it happened too soon. But people don't want to sit there and wait. We're impatient, and we want it now because we think we have to have it now. We think it's going to solve all our problems, but it's like you're not ready for that. So be patient about it. And
I always
what
say
it
the
is.
same thing. I
Yeah.
mean, and enjoy the process because it's not going to be there forever. And I always say like, there's no end point where you've just like, you're completely accomplished everything because you're always going to be striving for more. Yeah. You just have to be happy along the way because
Exactly.
nothing's going to make you happy in the long run.
Yeah, nothing or no one. And that's what it's the last few months, I would say from like August until now, I didn't do interviews. I didn't do any content. And it was kind of, I mean, maybe it's just me. Like I said, I put this pressure on myself. Like nobody says anything to me where they're like, oh no, what are you doing? But I had to look at it like, oh no, like, did I fall off or did I give up? But then I realized it wasn't that. It was, I really had to work on myself personally because I was so focused on everything I was doing professionally. And I'm like, okay, there was little stuff like just learning how to cook more. I'm like, that's cool. I can do all my interviews. I can do whatever work. But at the end of the day, when I go home, can I just cook a meal without having to go out? And that's just something I always wanted to do. So I did that. I got into working out, but then I didn't do anything work-wise. But I needed that time to kind of like reset and really gather myself. And now that I'm back into doing more work, I feel like I'm a much better person and I'm much happier and more whole, that it's like now it's going to be even faster than if I tried to do all the work while I was still trying to work on myself. So
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Do you think you can be more productive when your life's more balanced and you might not actually have to put in as much time into actual work?
yeah, I think so, because I think, we get so caught up in, goals and a timeline, but it's like, I don't know what's something that you had to work on, like internally, where you were like mine again was as little as like learning how to cook or working out or not. I overthink a lot. So that was one of my things. But when you're overthinking and then trying to work, but you're overthinking that work, or you're going through a breakup, or like, it's just like, you can't, it's that whole thing. Like, you can't do too many things at once, but if you're putting your time and energy into too many things, like, it'll never get done. So I think if you're more balanced and you're more whole, it makes your life so much easier. And it's worth like pausing for a second, like, just to get that done. Cause in the long run, it'll end up being faster.
Right.
So
Right. And just to go back a little bit. So you mentioned Oprah. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest lesson you learned from her?
You know what? So I feel like I'm gonna be talking forever. Sorry.
No, keep going. I'm enjoying it.
So, when I put that video out, I'm very like to myself. So after I put that video out, this is why I have so much faith. Like, that's one thing no one will ever be able to tell you. You will never be able to tell me that God doesn't exist or that he's not a part of your process, because that's my whole story. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for my faith. And after the Oprah thing, I remember I was just home and I was just on the internet just watching stuff. And then I went on her site and then a pop-up came up and it said, "Are you a big texter?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big texter." So I just replied in the little pop. I don't know what I said. I just said, I text everywhere. I text, when I wake up, I text when I go to sleep, I text when I'm in the bathroom, I text in the, like, it was really bad. And I was 19 at the time when I wrote this. I sent it. I didn't think anything of it. Then I went to an Iowa State, Iowa game. I'm not going to lie. I was very drunk because it was their like tailgate, like football game. And then I see a number call me and it's a 312, which is Chicago. I didn't pick it up because I don't pick up numbers I don't know. But then there was a voicemail that was like, "Hey, Jen, this is Ellie with the Oprah Winfrey Show. We were just calling you because we got your submission and we wanted to see if you'd be interested in being in the show." When you hear that, and then when you're drunk and you're around all your friends and you told them what you did, you think it's a joke. So I'm like, okay, like, that's not real.
Like,
I
who's
remember
pranking me right now?
I was outside. I'm like, that's not real. And like, I went back into like the apartment, and then they're like, no, like, that wasn't like that. Nobody called you. So I called back the number just because I didn't know. And it really went to, "You've reached the office of," I think her name was like Jill at the time. Long story short, talked to her the next day. They asked me if I could meet that following week to do like a driving thing, a driving simulation thing with texting and driving. Did that. Then they called me again and said, "Hey, we want to bring you to the actual show and you could bring 2 guests." So I brought my mom and my aunt. Then after that, they're like, we don't know if it's going to make it into the show because we don't know how they're going to cut it. This is a very special episode. It was the America's Deadliest Obsession. So it was one of her biggest like episodes. And I'm like, okay, cool. So then we go and sit there, and then it's not like I was sitting on the couch next to her. It was me and then 2 other people who did the driving thing. So she asked all of us one question each, but it's still like, Oprah still asked me a question. Like, that's cool.
Right.
So it was, kind of not scripted. They told me to repeat what I said in my my submission, and then like a couple other things just to, for people to get the lesson of like, don't text and drive. So then after that, show is over. I go in the green room and I'm about to leave, and then the same person, Ellie, goes, "Hey, Oprah's outside the green room and she wants to talk to you, like, before you leave." And I'm like,
Just to you specifically?
Yes.
Wow.
So I'm like, what? Like, I'm sure she talked to everybody specifically, but I was like, okay. Like, so then I just like go outside and I'm like, "Where's Oprah?" Like, this is weird. Like, they're like, I'm like, "I'm looking for Oprah." Like, that sounds so weird saying that. It's like, what do you mean you're looking for Oprah? So she's in the back, and then I just go up to her and I was like, "Hi." Like, I was like, "Thanks for having me." She's like, "Jen, you did an amazing job. Like, you're a natural, like, on camera." I'm like, "Oh, well, it's funny. Like, I just started this blog, and I want to do like interviews, and I want to be the next you, just the Filipino version." And like, she started laughing, and so she hugs me and she goes, "You know what, Jen? The next me will be you. Just keep doing what you're doing because someone needs to be that voice." Whether she meant it or not, I felt like that was God saying, "Look, you said you wanted to meet Oprah. you said you wanted to be like her. Now actual Oprah told you you're going to be the next me. Just keep doing what you're doing. That's not a coincidence. I don't think there's any coincidence in life. And I think especially the way like I live, I listen to my gut and my heart a lot. So I know when it's God and when it's not. And then sometimes even when it's not, I still don't listen and try to tell myself like, no, like that's not what he meant. Like I could still do it.
Right.
But hearing that, it was like, I would say that was the lesson I learned from her without her knowing she was actually teaching me a lesson. She showed me like what I really want to do is possible. And I haven't seen her since, but it's like, I'm sure she's come across some kind of video, but when I'm ready, I just know that at some point I'm going to get in touch with her again and be like, oh man, we shot this in 2010 and now I'm interviewing you. And then that's weird. But I think that was my biggest lesson, her just telling me just to keep going. And that was it. But it was crazy.
It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I still actually I haven't told that story in a long time. So even thinking about that, I'm like, I can't believe like when I'm actually like sharing like that really did happen in 2010. It was 7 years ago, but in that 7 years to see everything that's happened. But that, I'm telling you, once she said that, I went home and I'm like, I'm not stopping anymore after like, how much more of a confirmation do you need when it comes to your dreams and like what you said? So I'm like, I don't care what it takes. Like, I'm just going to keep going, because that I refuse to believe that just happened for no reason or just because like there's something behind that. So until I figure out what that is, like I'm just gonna keep going.
What's your biggest mistake you've made trying to work your way into the industry?
My biggest mistake would be trying to do too much at once. And also catering to everybody. I used to be the type that would answer every phone call, every text message, every email within an hour, and it didn't matter what time it was. I have a very horrible sleeping schedule. So if somebody called me at 3 a.m. or emailed me, they would get a response like right then and there, because I felt like I had to answer everything. I felt like everything was important, and it's really not. I mean, communication, of course, is the number one thing. So I'll always respond within a day, but it's never instant where it's like, oh, I have to get to you right now and drop everything. And I realized when I was doing that, I was wasting a lot of time on other people when I could have just been focused on myself. And then also that even applies to like my personal life. When it came to relationships and other people, especially my relationships, I put so much time and energy into whoever I was dating and their goals and whatever they had going on that I was like, wow, when I got to a point where I was like, I kind of like kept track of it, where I'm like, okay, what did I do today? And it was sad because it became more of, oh, I did this for this person, when I could have taken that hour or 8 hours and did that for my own stuff, and I would have been way further. So I would say my biggest mistake was not making myself a priority when it came to my work and feeling like everybody else was more important and their needs were more important. So now I'm at a point where it's like, I just have to be super selfish, and I can't feel bad about it because it worked for me, of course, but it's just you don't have to rush to get everything done. Like, it's not that serious, and that was my biggest mistake.
I feel like you're wise beyond your years. Like, I wish I would have had as much self-awareness at 28 as you do.
You know what? And it's like, yeah, like I'm about to be 28, but it's crazy because I've been like this since probably, I don't know, like 16 or 17. I've always been like that. And it sucks because when I first started and I would do, my interviews or whatever, and people would be like, how old are you? I'd be like 20 or like 21. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're so young. Like, how are you even talking like that or whatever? And then now when I say I'm 27, I feel like, oh, I'm not that young anymore. But then when I look at it, I'm like, you know what? I've learned so much that it's like, I felt like everything before 27 was chapter 1 of my life, which is very scary because it's like a lot happened like in that whatever time frame that it's, I don't know if I lived in like some other life or if it was, because people would ask me like, what were your influences? But my parents were never strict on me. They never said, don't do this, don't do that. And I have Filipino parents, like especially Filipino parents are very like, you're going to go to nursing school, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to do this. My parents were never like that.
But was it because of who you are, because you're so able to kind of steer your own path and you don't need as much direction maybe?
I think, so I think I learned by Exactly, and that's cool. I was planning to write like an open letter to my parents for my next blog because I've never like sat down with them. It was like, of course, there's always appreciation. I talk to them every day. It's always like, oh, love you. How was your day? But I don't think they realize like the way that they raised my brother and I. Even though they didn't say anything like don't do this, don't do that, or try to be strict, it was because they didn't do that. It made us not want to act out or like do anything. Like I've never been arrested, never like the worst thing. I got suspended in middle school and that wasn't even my fault. We'll talk about that. But they're very like, I think my parents, the fact that they trusted me is what made me the person that I am today. You got to think about it. I was 22 and I called my parents when I came to visit LA. And again, there's a creepy story behind that. But I just called them randomly and was like, I'm going to move to LA. And they're like, okay, like when? I'm like, I think September when Chris, who's my brother, goes to school. And they're like, okay, like, do you have a job or anything like that? I'm like, no, but like, I'll figure it out. They didn't try to stop me. My dad drove with me and they said like, look, if you need help, like, of course, like, we'll help you. But I was able to figure it out the first weekend I got here. So my parents never had to like pay for anything. But I'm that type too. It's like my dad works 80 hours a week. So unnecessary, but he does it. Yeah, so he works. Both of my parents work at the post office, but my dad works at the post office and also one of the grocery stores in our hometown. And it's like, it's so unnecessary because it's like, he can retire. Like, he's like, okay, I'm going to retire from my first, the second job. He's been there for 29 years, but then, yeah, when he was going to do it, I'm like, why don't you just retire? Like, you don't even need to be working that much. Like, what is there? Like, I'm out of, like, my brother and I are both grown. Like, what are you doing? Right. And his thing was, I don't want to retire at 29. I want to be able to say I was there for 30. I'm like, nobody's going to know if you were there for 30. But it's that mentality that my dad has of, like, I don't need this job. I can just relax. But, like, I don't want to retire at 29. I want to retire at 30 because it's a better number. It's a better goal. So I think I totally got that from him. But I think just them trusting me, no matter how crazy my decisions were, made me want to be a better person and someone that I wanted them to be proud of. To be like, that's my daughter. She didn't do anything crazy. Like, she figured it out on her own. And, like, that's a reflection of them. Like, it's like, that's, good parenting, I guess. So,
right. I mean, and you've been able to create your own network, your own following.
Yeah.
It's really been, it's been impressive because you don't have someone telling you when to do something and what to do, and you just have that drive.
That's what's crazy. It's, I was just having this conversation yesterday with one of my friends where I was like, he asked me how the stuff with Complex was doing. I'm like, it's great because, of course, being part of that network's awesome. It's a huge platform. I'm like, if you go on my site, I have the Complex brand. So it's, I'm part of the network. But at the same time, I'm like, but as far as for, like, booking stuff or, like, brand, I'm like, there was nothing, I got those on my own. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I love what it is because I have that cosign and it's the whole perception thing. Like, if you can drop that network, like, you're in with stuff. But I was like, but I'm glad that I'm able to do stuff if need be. And he's like, yeah, that's great, but, like, that's not how it should be. He's like, you really need somebody who can, like, service you because you've done so much already on your own that, like, you'd get more done. So it's weird. I'm like, I have this weird obsession of just doing everything on my own, just so I know, like, I've always had a weird, especially being a female in this industry, and if you look at any of my interviews, it doesn't matter which one, there's going to be a comment in there that says, like, who'd you sleep with, like, to get this interview, or how many rappers have you? It's so bad, but it doesn't bother me because it's like, look, this industry is like high school. Like, if I really was like that, one, I wouldn't be getting these interviews, and two, you would have heard about it by now. But when I look at that, I've just always had this thing where I never wanted anyone to be able to hold something over my head or said, like, oh, I did this for you or I did that. So I wanted just to be able to know, like, I can do this on my own. So that way, when I do have a bigger team or I have an agent or I have somebody, servicing that, it's going to be even better because I've already learned how to, like, manage that it's like, I feel like I kind of made the job easy for them where it's like, well, what left is there to pitch? Like, I literally did everything. Like, I don't have the access to the next level stuff, but, like, I'm sellable. Like, if you. Right. So I don't even remember what the question was. I just started going on and on.
And now you have
What
a meeting with an agent coming up.
Yeah. So,
Which is
and that's
exciting.
oh, that could be my snippet for the thing. Like, no one knew that. I wrote that
Sorry,
goal. No,
I just spilled the beans.
No, that's perfect though, because I swear 2010 or 2011. So I have this weird obsession with planners. I have all my planners since 2010. I write down everything. And the reason I keep my planners is because it keeps me accountable of like, what did you get done? What didn't you get done? I believe it was the 2011 planner, get an agent. And the thing is, it's 2017, and now I'm having my first meeting with an agency in 2017. That's 6 years.
Right.
But again, I wrote it down. I said it was going to happen. It took a while, but it happened. And that's what matters. I'm not even worried about this meeting because I feel like it happened when it was supposed to. Like I said, I'm more whole now. I'm happier now. I learned from like my mistakes. I'm a way better person. And, I know that whatever this meeting is going to go great because stuff doesn't just happen. It was the timing of it. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, I was shocked that it was like, like how it happened. And I won't tell anybody who the agency is or whatever, but I had a meeting with the company I do booking for. And then my reel got brought up. And then the guy we were having a meeting with was like, oh, do you have who represents you? Like nobody. And he's like, oh, would you want to like have an agent? I'm like, I would love to, I want to get one for hosting, but I really want to get into like commercials and doing more like TV and like movie things. I did the BET and that was so fun. Right. And he's like, oh, he just literally was like, call. And then he said the agency.
Let me set the scene. It's just in the back parking lot behind our offices.
Yeah, so he just calls this guy, and then the guy picks up right away. And it's hard to get a hold of people, especially if they're busy. Like, people don't just pick up, like, when they're not expecting your call. So then they have this call, and then I sent my reel and my deck to the guy who made the call. And then I wasn't on the email, but he forwarded an email, and then the agency was like, hey, like she looks great. She's great. Like, I want to set up a time to sit down with her. So and so will. So we're going to meet. But that's what I mean. It's so hard because I definitely work hard, but that's what I'm saying about the whole faith thing. You can't tell me like God doesn't exist because I didn't work hard to have this meeting with this guy and tell him to reach out to this agency that literally just happened, and it was without trying. So it's crazy. The goals that you have in life, you may think it's going to happen a certain way, but I promise you it's going to happen in a way you never would have thought it would happen. So there's really no point in even trying to force it to happen because how God has it planned for you, you're not going to be able to figure it out anyway. That's the point. The point of it is He's God. You don't know what God's going to do. You don't know His thoughts. You don't know like His plans and stuff. So it's like, that's what makes it exciting. I thought, oh, I'm probably going to get this meeting with an agency or get an agent when I start putting out more work, and then I start reaching out. And I reached out to people on LinkedIn. I reached out to people through like emails and saying I want a representation. And people would say like, oh, we're not looking for any more clients. But again, it wasn't a big agency that I was reaching out to, which is crazy because now it's one of the biggest agencies that's like, hey, we're interested in representing you. But it's like, I worked, like I said, it's that whole time thing. Like, I wasted so much time trying to reach out that like I had to just fall back and just trust, like, do what you're supposed to do. And then God's already working on it anyway, but you're not going to get to that place until you do what you know you're supposed to do. And that could be something internally. That could be something like professionally. Like, I don't need to tell you what that is because you already know. Like, you know your flaws. You know what you're not supposed to do. You know what's wrong. And until you face those things, you'll never get to the next thing. So that's how
you have to at least accept them.
Yeah. Yeah, at least. Like, acknowledge them. And it's like once that agency thing happened, it wasn't just confirmation of like, oh, like I'm so close to achieving a goal that I wrote down in my planner in 2011, but it was also confirmation of like, you're on the right path because more things are coming now. It's not like what he saw in that reel or that deck was any different than what I was doing a year ago. I've been doing this for 8 years. So it's like, what difference was there? And it wasn't my work. It was me becoming more whole and becoming a better person. And I truly believe that's what it was. It wasn't about the work and it wasn't about the talent. It was about can you get your life together with the stuff outside of work? And then as soon as you can get that, then you can end that. People I hate when people say you can't have it all. You really can. It's just you got to find the balance of doing it, and then you can. And I hate that people think you can't because you can. It's just, do you have the patience to do it, and are you disciplined enough to do what you have to do to get it? So I will get it all at some point.
And don't get in your own way.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be your own worst enemy, because a lot of people do that.
Exactly.
And they let their doubt get to them. Mm-hmm. But what I'll say, what's great about you, Jen, is in this interview, it's like I have like 4 questions in mind, and you just answer them all right in a row.
See, I told you I was born to talk.
This is great. I should just let Jen go for an hour and a half, and I'll just sit in the back.
You know what? It's funny because when I do my interviews with artists, like people are like, oh, do you do a bunch of research? I'm like, no, because if I know kind of what I want to talk about, I'm just going to go off of what they're saying anyway, but it's like I can talk for days.
Well, that's something that's something I was going to ask you about before you answer my question. So I had Soren Baker on a few episodes ago. It's one of the back episodes, and he used to be the editor of The Source. He's written for pretty much every magazine. And he's a real hip hop head. Like he studies every album. He knows, he doesn't know just the singles. He knows every song. He knows every line in every song. So his value when he interviews people is how he differentiates himself is he knows everything, right? Mm-hmm. And when we've had this conversation, you've told me you come into it without any knowledge of their music and don't even plan to talk about their music.
Oh man.
So why do you think that makes you stand out as an interviewer?
I think it makes me stand out because one, you got to look at it, these artists or whoever's being interviewed, they're used to people being starstruck or being nervous to talk to them because of how big they are. Right. Another thing is because I'm not asking you questions that people can Google. That's my thing. I'm like, I'll never ask you something that somebody else already asked you, because what's the point of that? And I'm also not asking you something just for the sake of numbers. I'm asking questions that I really want to know. If I don't care about your features and all the people on your album, I'm not going to talk about it, because you'll be able to tell on camera, like, I don't care. And that's what happened. I remember when I was doing interviews for Hot New Hip Hop, like, it got to a point where I was like, hey, if it's a music interview, I want to be off camera because they'll be able to tell I don't care. And then if it's not music, I'll be on camera. So I did do a lot more interviews that people don't know I did, but it's like, I don't want to be on there because that's not me. Were you just reading
the questions in that situation?
Yeah, so like it would be kind of set up like this, where I would just be behind the camera and I'd have the questions on my phone. But I can't, if I ask about a feature or something and then they respond, I kind of just go into the next question, which is boring to me, versus if I do an interview about something like yesterday, I did that Sci-Hi interview. Mm-hmm. I asked him about his first job because one of his songs was called Get Your Money. I'm like, what was a job that you had that no one would have ever guessed you had? He said he was a lawn, I don't know what because he said it. I've never heard of it before. That's how weird it was. But he's like, no, I really had a tripod and I was like measuring the levels of land for something like a land like scouters.
Like for a landscaper type
yeah,
of thing?
But it wasn't landscape, but it was something like land something. And then he's like, and then after that, I worked at a movie theater. And I was like, oh, I'm like, you know what I always wondered? If you work for the movies, I'm like, because I love movies, I'm like, do you get to watch all the movies for free, like just because you work at the theater? And he's like, I mean, we did. He's like, but you're not supposed to. But see, it became this whole like, I genuinely wanted to know that, but that's not a question I prepared where I'm like, do you have to pay for movies? Because I didn't know he was going to say a movie theater. So that's one thing about interviews. My trick to that is, that was another thing I did wrong. When I first started doing interviews, I always had the next question in the back of my head. But when I was thinking about the next question in the back of my head, I wasn't really listening to what they were saying to the first one. So then I couldn't have a conversation. So that's why I stopped coming up with set questions where I'm like, just have whatever talking points and just let it flow. Have a regular conversation. So I've never had a bad experience with an interview where someone was uncomfortable, and people always remember me because they say, you talked to me about something that no one's ever talked to me about, and that's why it was different. It wasn't about your album. It wasn't about, especially with Sci-Hi, everyone always asks him about Kanye. I didn't ask him about Kanye. Like,
he's got to be sick of that same question.
yeah, I didn't. Kanye was not mentioned not once. Good music wasn't mentioned once. Like, nothing. It was literally like, I want to know you, and I learned so much, about him that he never talked about before. And it's sometimes it sucks because blogs and the views come from the drama and, stuff like that. I'll never be that person. So I have hundreds and hundreds of interviews with such legends and big artists and big people, but some people might not ever see it just because it's not, oh, so-and-so's drama or so-and-so's divorce or like rehab or stuff like that. It's them as a person. So if you want to get to know people as a person, then you can watch my interviews. But I'm not worried about that because one day when that time comes, someone's going to click on some interview, see everything else, and be like, how have I not seen? But that's my niche. And I think it works for me because nobody else does it. I've seen some people try to pull it off, like just to try that approach. But it's like, again, you can tell when someone's genuine about it or when they're doing it just because they think they have to. So right. I think that will always be my thing. And
why is it so important for you to inspire others through your content?
It's important for me to inspire others because, like I said earlier, there's not enough people showing people that you really can do what you want to do. No one likes telling you about all the bad stuff they went through, and I'm so open about it. Yeah. Like, I did this wrong, I did that. And it's important to me because I listen to a preaching almost every night before I go to bed. I'll just fall asleep to it. And the feeling I get when I hear a message from like a TD Jakes or something is I want people to be able to feel that way when they watch my content or read a blog. And I have gotten so many emails and so many comments of people saying like, you have no idea like how much you just helped me. Like, this made me cry. Like, you made me want to do this. And that's inspiring because it's like people need that. And for me to know like, oh, this person went after their dream just because of a video. The craziest one, sorry, I'm still all over the place. No, that's good. When I went to a Lakers game, it was with some coworkers. And when I was walking, I went to the bathroom and then I was walking back to my seat super fast because the game was about to come back on. And I hear Jen. And then I'm like, that doesn't sound like anybody I know. So I'm going to keep walking. So I just kept walking because I'm like, maybe it's not me. But then the guy stopped me and it was this kid that was working at one of the stands, just like where the seats are. And he's like, I can't believe I'm meeting you at the Staples Center at a Lakers game. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you're moving to LA video? He's like, I just moved here a couple weeks ago because of your video. And he's like, wow. And I was like, huh? Like, and he's like, no, I swear I watch all your YouTube videos. So to hear stuff like that and meet people like that, I'm like, you literally moved to LA just because I made a video called You Can Afford to Live in LA. And I love that video that it's, I told people like, it's hearing that. I talked about my experience. I told them it wasn't going to be easy. I told them they were going to have to get a regular job, but I said you can do it. And so he's not the first person who's come up to me and said that. So that's what makes me, I'm like, I feel like that's the only reason why I am where I am today, because I know my real purpose in life is to inspire people. And I truly believe that, when you talk about God and you talk about church, people get very uncomfortable about it. I know that there's a lot of people who have increased their faith or have even believed in God or went to church just because of my story and how much I talked about him, because I don't talk about God in a very like preachy way, but it's like my work and my blessings prove like, God is real. So I feel like God's using me to get to people without having to use God as like, hey, go to church and this is how you're going to learn and listen. I feel like all my inspirational videos and my blogs come from church. It's just I might not say this was from a service.
I think the difference between you and someone who's really preachy that might turn people off is that you're sharing your experience and this is why it works for you. This is why it's important in your life. This is why, and other people are judgmental and they tell you this is what you should do because is
Yeah.
what the Bible says, or
Yeah,
however they
like,
want
I
to go
know.
about it. But I feel like it's such an automatic turnoff. First of all, when someone tells you what you should do with your life,
Yeah.
but and then they act like they know better than you do.
It's Shahadi. Sorry, Shahadi yesterday was saying, he's like, man, he's like, in the interview, he's like, it's just so funny because you're like, God is so good. I fucking love this. Like, I mean, he's like, but it's so funny because he's like, it's you.
Right.
And that's one of the things a lot of people think, I get backlash sometimes. They'll be like, oh, you're obviously not a Christian because I had a video of me freestyling to Eminem and I'm drinking a limerita. But then my video before that was about how you have to let God be God. And it's like, look, I'm not going to not show the stuff where I'm swearing and drinking and what, because I'm sorry, I'm funny when I'm drunk. Like when I do that, I'm not going to not show that just because I talk about this. And honestly, I think it's not like a contradiction. It's just who I am. So it's like, well, I feel like I'm more relatable because it's like, hey, you can relate to me on the drinking limeritas.
Right.
And then you're going to be like, oh, I like her. She's funny. But then you're going to get caught up in my other stuff. My interviews and my relationships, those only happened because it was kind of like a trick. I needed to get those interviews and be next to these people and get those views because in the reality, people were going to come across my inspirational videos. So it's a whole big like scheme. It's like you're finding me through my interviews, but you're going to end up loving me for my inspirational stuff. Because I get a lot of comments where they're like, oh, I found you through so-and-so interview. I didn't know you did this. So it's like that's how I get people.
Yeah. So for me, when I first started making music, I felt really uncomfortable like sharing really personal details. Mm-hmm. But as I kind of matured, I realized that's what people are looking for because they can actually relate to that.
Exactly.
And they've been through similar stuff.
Yeah.
So was there a point, like a real eye-opening experience that made you say, I really need to share with people. This is how I'm really going to get open to people.
I'm actually at that point right now. So I never shared my personal life ever, especially my love life. Like, no, like that was not happening because it was embarrassing, the things that I went through. And I got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm sharing my interviews and I'm sharing all this inspirational stuff, but people think that I was just always happy and my life was perfect, but they didn't know that the last 5 years of my life, especially when it came to my love life and relationships, was extremely unhealthy. It was to the point that I remember someone came up to me, no one I'm even like that close to, where like I would just tell her my business. But she told me, she's like, you just seem so much like happier now. She's like, I remember when I would see you at ski, I could just tell in your face like something was wrong. And to me, that was crazy because I thought I could cover stuff up, but I never talked about it. So I felt like I was holding myself back because I didn't want to talk about that personal stuff because one, it was embarrassing, but two, I just didn't want people to look at like, why would you be dumb enough to put yourself in those situations or stay in those relationships? But it was part of my growing process. So I think now it's going to be my interviews and my inspirational stuff. And now I think it's going to turn into like relationship stuff, because if I even post anything like about marriage or being single or anything, like people are surprised. Like one time I think I said I had a boyfriend, they're like, what, like when did you, because I never posted it. Like you can go through my Instagram, you are not going to figure out who the ex-boyfriend, never posted, like nothing was ever shared. But I think I got to that point because I realized I was holding myself back, and until I open up that personal part of my life, I'm never going to get to that next level, because that's a part of it. I went through that for a reason, and I went through that because I'm supposed to help people not go through what I went through. So I'm like slowly working. I did a couple of them. Yeah, I did like 2 of them, but those were a hit. When I went it. So I'm at that point now, but I'm definitely going to be more open about stuff. I have to be.
That's good. So you kind of paint yourself as this Lone Ranger who's out doing everything on her own. But
Ranger.
I'm just premising this question.
Yeah.
But you know the saying, you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
So who are your 5 people you spend the most time with?
You know what's sad? I literally I spend it with myself. It's so I would say, so my best friend and his girlfriend just moved here in April. So I would say, I'm around them now. But as far as because my family's not here. My family and my best friends, they're not here, with the exceptions of the ones who just moved here. So I'm never physically really around anybody, but as far as like the 5 people I talk to, I would say like, yeah, you know, it's probably that, but I couldn't even narrow it down to like 5 people that I'm around. Like, that's a really hard question.
Well, do you think it's important to surround yourself with people that inspire you?
Oh, definitely. It definitely is. Like, I have people in my life that, you know, I'll call them or I'll see them every once in a while, but I definitely like, I'm very, very nitpicky about like who I spend my time with, because I do believe in that. Who you surround yourself with, like the environment you're in, that's what you're going to turn into. So that's why you don't see me like in clubs or bars, or because it's like I don't want to go to that. And it's like I really, yeah, my only friends, the people who are around are the ones I've had the same best friends since I was literally in 5th grade.
Have you had to cut any people loose that were dragging you down?
Oh yeah, I've had to cut many people loose.
Yeah,
a lot of people were weighing me down. I won't say names. Like,
yeah, of
they
course.
they know who they are, but like you have to
shout out to those people.
Seriously, no, you have to cut people loose, and it could be people who did wrong to you, but it could also be people who didn't do any wrong to you, just because you can't take people to the next level of where you're supposed to be, because they might not be able to handle that. And that was something that was really hard for me when I realized it's a very lonely world when you're trying to do what you need to do. So I had to cut people off, you know, who did do wrong to me, and but then also people who did no wrong, but it's just their mentality and their priorities were so messed up that I didn't want to get dragged into it. So there's one where I didn't tell her, like my friend, like, oh, hey, like you're cut off. I didn't say that, but like I won't go out with her or like do anything, just because it's like I don't want to get lost in your mentality and your priorities, because that really does affect you whether you believe it or not. So I think that's why I have like no friends, or like I'm not like out a lot, because I'm like stay that way, like, because I can't ruin this.
Yeah. So out of all the successful people you've been around, who do you look up to, and what do they have that inspires you? I
really love TD Jakes and Devon Franklin, which is funny because I haven't interviewed either of them. So
okay.
I just, like I said, I love the inspiration that TD Jakes has. Like, I'll listen to his preachings all the time, but also Devon Franklin, because one, he's the same. I mean, he speaks openly, you know, about the stuff he went through and like his faith, but then he's also one of the biggest producers like in Hollywood, but he's also Megan Good's husband. So it's like, I really like, those are the two I really look to, where I'm like, I want to just have that kind of impact. If you had asked me this maybe like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have probably said some artist and was like, oh, I just think it's so cool that they're doing this. But it's everything's changed. Like I said, even if you interviewed me 3 months ago, my responses would have been different, because I wasn't the same person that I was. But I just, TD Jakes and Devon Franklin are definitely like, I love that. Like, and and even saying that out loud and even being asked that, it's crazy that I'm even responding in that way. I'm like, because that's literally nobody that I've ever interviewed or nothing. I've met both of them, but
right.
never interviewed them. And I would think that I would have probably named one of the people I interviewed and like their success, but no, like it's those two.
Huh.
So.
All right. So if there's someone trying to break into the entertainment industry now, you know, a Jen from like 8 years ago, and they're not having a lot of luck, they're applying for jobs, things like that, what would you recommend to them to really make a footprint or create their own opportunity?
Stop overthinking it, and it's all working out even if you think it's not. Stop thinking that you have to go about it the traditional way. That's what I did when I tried to get into doing interviews. I applied when I first moved to LA, or was trying to move to LA. I applied everywhere. ABC, NBC, the Clippers, the Lakers, like everybody. And I heard back from a few, but I didn't get any of those jobs. So you get so lost in thinking you have to do it a certain way or a way somebody else did it. You have your own path. So stop trying to do it in a way that you think you're supposed to, and just go with your gut. Go with what you think. Do what you actually want to do, because traditional doesn't work anymore. Think of it. Think how much society has changed. Instagram's your new resume. So I'm even picky with my Instagram. Like I won't post certain things or I'll delete a lot. I want to unfollow so many people just because I'm like, I don't really want to be affiliated. Like those are some people I have to cut loose, you know? But 8 years ago, Jen trying to get into it, stop trying to rush the process. Stop thinking you have to do it a certain way and just do what you need to do. And again, not even just when it comes to professionally, work on yourself, like work on being like the best person you can be. And then when you become that person, that's when you're ready to have those doors be open to you. God's not going to open a door for you if you're not mentally, emotionally, and spiritually like prepared for that, because you'll ruin it anyway. So instead of trying to think I need to get into this industry right away, focus more on like, what do you need to do for yourself? And then that can happen.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Instagram. You've done a really good job with connecting with different brands. Mm-hmm. And how did that come about? Like, when did you realize that was so important?
When did I realize? So with brands and stuff, I realized there were so many Instagram posts of just someone taking like a selfie or like a picture with the product. And, that works like to, make people aware of the brand, but I knew I could do something different content wise. So I reached out to different brands. I'm like, hey, I don't want to just do an Instagram post. I want to do this. And I pitched a video idea. So I'm doing a MeUndies campaign. So that's the next one I have to do. Mm-hmm. MeUndies, they really do have the best like shorts, like everything. And I'm not even just saying that just because I'm doing something. I genuinely really like the brand. So they told me, hey, just post a picture, post a selfie in the thing. I'm like, okay, that works, whatever. It'll get likes because it's whatever. But I was like, I don't want to just do that though. I'm like, I want to do a video piece. I want to make something personal so it's not so promo-y and that people know like, oh, this is a real thing. So I'm going to do a whole thing about how like I discovered MeUndies, and I'm a hoarder. So like I have every shirt. It's so annoying. I have every comfy shirt you can think of. Like, so I was cleaning my closet and I'm like, I have way too many comfy shirts that like I don't even wear any of these. So I want to do a campaign where I have the MeUndies like tank top or whatever and the shorts, but then I'm sorting through all my old shirts and telling the story behind it. So I have my middle school shirt from 2004. Why do I have it? I don't know, but I could show people like I have this. So the whole campaign is I have all these shirts, but I don't need the shirts anymore because I have MeUndies, but I'm telling you guys the story. So I'm not just saying I'm getting rid of this. It's like I'm going to tell funny stories. Like I'll tell the story of when I got suspended in middle school when I show that middle school shirt. And
that's why you were holding that one back?
Yeah, so it's like there's so many. I don't know why. I really am a hoarder. That's why I lose everything because I have so much shit in my apartment. So like that's one of the things with campaigns. And when I realized brands found that so valuable because it wasn't the traditional, let me just post a picture and that's it.
Right. And so you said you reach out to brands. How do you find the right person within the brand?
So I'll either reach out to the generic email that's just info@whatever the company is. I'll just reach out to everybody. Just reach out to everybody from that company until someone responds to me, because someone's going to respond at some point, I think the craziest brand deal I ever got was with Postmates, and nobody knows this. So when I quit my corporate job, which was like the best paying job I ever had, it came down to...
Where was that at?
With live video.
Okay.
So it was the app. So basically, and I never told this story, so you're really getting like all my secrets. So with live video, it basically came down to, you're either going to choose your shit or the app. You can't do both. And I understand that because it's a corporate job. You have to be there 40, 50 hours a week. And I chose myself. I was like, I'm not going to do something for a check, because I wasn't going to be happy, especially when I knew what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, I'm fucked. I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for my stuff, but I'm not about to go run to my parents and be like, hey, can you pay for all my bills for the rest of my life? I wasn't going to do that. So I did a bunch of things. That sounds so bad. Not like that. Okay, so I tried Lyft, which is funny because I have a Lyft brand partnership now.
Right.
I did Postmates. So I did Postmates because I didn't want people in my car. So I did this last year. I'm like, I don't like people in my car. Let me just see what happens with Postmates. So I did it, and I did deliveries. And when I did a delivery, I was sitting there thinking I could probably do something with like artists or something with this, like deliver Postmates to fans. So I'm like, let me figure this out and put it together. So I added a bunch of people on LinkedIn, and I sent a message and just said like, hey, so I've been doing Postmates deliveries, but blah, blah. I do this, had my deck, had my reel. I'm like, I would love to do content with you guys where I do deliveries with artists. And the first guy that replied to me, he's like, this looks great. Can you email this to, he put his email. So I waited a couple of days because I don't like emailing people on the weekends because I feel like I'll get buried in your inbox. Like I'm telling you, every little move I make, like there's a strategy behind it.
It's important. You have to think about it.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to email him Sunday night. So it'll be there Monday morning. I send this email on Sunday and I get an automatic response that says, so-and-so is no longer at Postmates. I'm like, fuck, like I should have done it like right away. I'm like, this sucks. So like, I'm like upset. And I'm like, no, like I worked way too hard. Like I came up with this idea. I did all this, like this idea didn't come for no reason. So then I just reached out to their generic thing on their website, like their customer service, copy and pasted the same message I sent on LinkedIn, put it in there with my deck. Then some girl reached out the next day. And then it was funny because I LinkedIn messaged the other guy and said, hey, like I saw you're not there. Like, do you have another person? He never responded to me. This girl emails me, and then he emails me the next day with that same girl's contact. I'm like, oh, I got a hold of her somehow. So me and her start talking, and then it turned into like, hey, instead of just doing content, would you want to have your own code? And then like we'd pay you out for everyone who uses your code. I'm like, okay. So then I did it. She's like, do you have anybody else that you think would want a code? So I brought everybody you could think of, and that paid my bills like for the first quarter of the year because it was all because I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. So I got out and did Postmates, came up with this idea, reached out through LinkedIn and generic things, and then that's what paid my bills. And that's when I realized I'm like, content is so valuable to people, and especially the way you do it. And we tried it, Postmates, you know, it was beyond just the code. I was able to order food for my guests like through Postmates when they did my interviews. But then that stopped because then it got bigger, and then like that partnership was done after like 3 or 4 months. But still, like that's what I mean. I didn't work hard to get a partnership with Postmates. I actually was about to be broke. It was like, let me go do this, and then I did. But
that's so inspiring. I mean, just the thought of. So if you work for Starbucks or you work for Domino's or, you know, you work for Lyft or whatever, you could come up with something creative and reach out to and make something happen.
Even the Lyft thing. So I started with I seriously never even told anyone. So this is the first time I'm talking about the Uber and the Lyft thing. Yeah. So I even did that. And first of all, that's fucking scary because I'm like 3 feet tall. So I'm like, how is this going to work? So I tried, I did Uber, and I have the craziest stories. Like I got tipped so well that I was like, man, why didn't I do this from the beginning? Because like, I remember I did one ride. The guy literally gave me $40 in cash, and I drove him from a bar to his house. It was 5 minutes away, and he gave me $40. And I was like, okay, like I'm done for the night. I'm going to take my ass home. But it was like, I got so many tips. It was crazy, and so many stories. And I'm like, I want to do like a video of this stuff because I had people who didn't want to get in my car because they didn't believe I was their driver. Like I had so many funny things. So then I tried doing Lyft because at this time Uber didn't have tips. People were just tipping me like just out of their pocket. So I was like, let me try Lyft because if I could get tips on a platform that didn't encourage tips, like I bet I could do way better with Lyft. So then I started doing Lyft for a bit. I didn't like it though, like compared to Uber. And then, long story short, one of my friends introduced me to someone at Lyft. He didn't know I was doing Lyft. He just said, hey, I just think that you guys could find a way to work together. So I reached out to her. We get on a call. We start talking about different content they want to do. And then she's like, oh yeah, we don't do the code thing. Cause I told her about the Postmates thing. She's like, but we are doing content, like different things. So we start talking about that. The content thing didn't end up happening, but it turned into like, oh, I have the plug for Lyft, so I get Lyft codes for people. We did the Ty Dolla $ign release event. We did the Made in Tokyo release event where it's like a code and then they get a percentage off. So now I'm just like Team Lyft forever. But now I just recorded a video for Lyft. So now it's like, it wasn't like an official partnership, but they're definitely a partner because if I do have someone coming for an interview, guess who's doing the ride? Lyft. when I have to go to an event, guess who has my Lyft credits? It's me. But it's like I was able to build something. And when I told her, like, hey, like I did a Lyft thing, like I would totally love to do like a Lyft lessons thing because I did life lessons. I still haven't done it yet, but they're down. Like we went over the contracts and stuff. So it's like all the stuff from when I was trying to figure out how to make money, I found a way to flip it. And like I said, it's that weird pressure of like, how can I make this better? So that's why I have no sympathy for people when they tell me I can't move to LA or I can't afford something, or if people think, oh, my dad, or I get that all the time, oh, it must be nice to have your dad or your boyfriend pay for your bills. First of all, I've never had a boyfriend pay for anything in my life. If anything, it was me like paying for stuff. Like it's just, you know, so but it didn't come from interviews. I literally, when it comes down to it, if I have to pay for some shit, I will. My car's fine for Uber. Like I haven't done it in forever, or for Lyft or for Postmates. Like I can do it easily if I had to pay something, but I did what I had to. And I think that was my ultimate test. God seeing like, okay, what are you going to do? One, when the job who's paying you the most says choose your brand where you're not making shit, or stay here and be comfortable and have this check. What did I do? I chose myself. Then it was like, okay, how are you going to make your money? Are you going to call your parents? Are you going to, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to do something fucked up? Like, are you gonna, you know?
Right.
But no, I went and got my car checked for Uber and Lyft and Postmates, and I did that. And I never ran into anybody that, like, knew me, but I knew if someone did, they'd probably be thrown off because it's like, how are you... Like literally Jeezy was on my set, and I remember I Ubered like the night before, but it's like, how was I Ubering like around like Pasadena and shit? But then I had Jeezy in front of my big ass sign on a set doing an interview. And it's like, that's the thing. People don't talk about that. No one would ever like admit to that, but no, I did it. And that'll probably be my next YouTube video now, because I never shared it. Like I have literally like videos and like screenshots of all like the rides I did. My comments are like, I love you. like the feedback, and it's like, I really could have made a lot if I really did it, but I would only do it for like 1 or 2 hours and be done. I'd be like, hey, I'm over it. And then I was scared people were gonna throw up in my car. They never did. I had people who were like, oh, come party with us. Or like, I'm like, no. Yeah. Like, no.
So I think at this point people can understand why you can't really answer the elevator pitch.
Yeah. So it's
and now you started working with us at the agency.
Yeah.
Too. So what's been the biggest challenge of that?
The biggest challenge at the agency, I wouldn't say it was there's no challenges. It's actually really exciting because, again, it's something that I never thought I'd be able to do. This all started because, when was that? I think May or June. Shadi called me and was like, can you get to Ludacris? And I'm like, I think so. Like, for what? And then he's like, oh, we have an offer. I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, for a show in New York. I'm like, okay, what's the budget? They told me the budget. I'm like, I mean, I don't see why not. So like I started making calls. I've met Ludacris. I've never interviewed him, but I knew the people at the label. I knew people, you know, I just knew people who were connected to him. So I called one of my friends who produced a lot of his music, and I was like, hey, so I have X amount of money for Ludacris, like, can you ask him if that's doable? So he's like, okay. He's like, hold on. And I've never asked for that before, so I'm like, what am I doing? So then he calls Ludacris. Ludacris gives him the contact of who I need to call, and then it happened right then and there. And I'm like, that's it? Like, that's all I had to do? And it happened. And it was the show that he brought 50 Cent out in New York, and no one knew I did that. So this will probably be the snippet that I use on my thing.
Why not?
But it's crazy because it's not that it was a challenge. It's more I guess it's more exciting because it's something new that I never thought I could do. Like, I've sent out a lot of offers and, you know, people just weren't available or they weren't interested. But the fact that I'm even coming to these artists with like millions of dollars or $500,000 or whatever it is, I'm not coming to them with like $10. Like,
right.
And all these artists that I've gone to, it has been for, hey, can we do an interview? And they've always come through with an interview. So all I want to do is to be able to book at least one show and put money in their pocket just because of all the times they looked out for me. But I think the biggest thing I learned was that that's what Jamie told me. He's like, you have to build another relationship with them. He's like, you already have the great relationship because they trust you, they respect you, they know you for your interviews. He's like, but now you're playing with big money and another opportunity. It's a whole different conversation where you really have to tell them like, no, I'm serious. This is what it is. So I have to build a second relationship on top of that relationship. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned. But it's exciting because who can say that? Like, who can say, I'm like, well, I already have the relationship with so-and-so artist, but like now I have to have another relationship because they need to trust that I'm bringing them like $500,000. Like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. It's
Right.
like, I'm like, so now I have this again. It's not like you guys put this pressure, like you need to book every big artist that you know, but I put that pressure on myself where it's like, okay, it's there. We did the interview. So now I have this weird checklist like, okay, I've interviewed this person. I haven't interviewed Ludacris yet, but it's like, okay, I put money in your pocket, but now I got to interview you. So it's like I have this weird checklist now. Before it was like, I just need to interview everyone. Now it's, I need to interview everybody, and then I need to book everybody for a show, and then I don't know what it's going to be. And then they all got to be on my TV show when I actually have a TV show. So it's like, I'll have options at that point.
So basically, if you take an interview with Jen, she's going to put money in your pocket as well.
Yes.
So it's a win-win for you.
Seriously. And it's like, and it's crazy because everyone I've been sending offers to, I've already interviewed them multiple times, but it's like, you know, even if they've said no, it still feels good to be able to say like, hey, I have $500,000 for you if you're available. And if they're not available, that's fine. I still came at you with $500,000. So I'm pretty sure if I ask you for something later, like an interview on my show, like I'm pretty sure there won't be any like, no, like why would I do that? And that's what's exciting about it. It's just like, I think it was the Ludacris thing happened so fast. But now that I'm learning more about it, I know it's not that fast, but it's exciting because I'm going to book these artists. And then it's so weird. I already have like my first picture in mind. When I book, if one of these artists takes the offers that are out right now, I'm going to that show and I'm going to take a picture like on that empty stage, like I actually booked this show. And then tell people like I've been doing this whole time, but it's exciting though.
Yeah,
so.
it is. Mm-hmm. So if I look through the questions, because you talked about having questions prepared, and I do, and I think you've answered so many of them. Like we talked about a rock bottom moment, check.
Yeah.
We talked about journaling, setting goals, check. So I kind of have like an encore section that's just a quick hitter section.
You know, it won't be quick because I'm gonna.
So like for the next 3 hours, we'll go through that. So what's the worst part of your job that no one in their right mind would want to do?
The worst part of my job is you never know when you have to do stuff. I was just explaining this the other day. I'm like, hey, yesterday I had nothing planned, but then when I woke up, I got called to ask if I could be at this shoot and then if I could do this. And so I was asked to do 2 more shoots for yesterday, and they asked me at 9 a.m. And on top of that, I already had another shoot that I had to be at, and I was nowhere. My nails were all messed up. Like, I didn't know what I was going to wear. I'm like, I can't do that. So it's crazy. It's exciting because it's like there's always stuff going on, but there's no point in planning anything for your life because you're going to have to drop it anyway and do something else. So I would say it's one, you know, the time. You don't really understand how much time is put into it. 2, the being lonely part. You don't have time to just like my family's not here. I am the closest to my family, but like I always told myself I was never going to leave Chicago just because of my family. But look, I'm here now and like nobody's here. So that part sucks, but it's like I've learned to like adjust to it where it's like, so if you constantly have to be around your family, your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, like just don't even try to be in this because that's just, you won't be successful if you need that constant, like you have to be around people. So it sucks, but it'll be worth it eventually.
Yeah.
You know?
So what's the one tool or piece of equipment you use that you couldn't live without?
My phone. I can't.
Besides that, everyone's addicted to their phone these days.
Equipment? Well, could I say
Or
my
a tool,
laptop?
a tool
No.
like
oh no, my planner. My
Okay.
planner. I have my planner, and I've been writing with the same pen since high school. So they're Staedtler pens. I cannot. If my house caught on fire, my apartment caught on fire, I would grab all my planners and just say fuck everything else. Like I just need I'm telling you, because my planners from like 2011 literally says like I have goals and I'll highlight the goals and mark the date like I achieved them. But there is stuff in all my planners that I have not achieved that like I'll forget, because that's the other thing. People rely too much on their memory. That's why it like bothers me when people don't write things down. I'm like, there's no way you're gonna remember that. Like there's no way.
I'm totally like that, and I'm trying to be better about. I use Todoist. It's like, you know,
what is it?
It's a digital to-do list basically.
No, but
Todoist it's called. Yeah,
but I'm gonna give you one of my notebooks. If you write, it's writing stuff. It's like, yeah, it's one thing to like have it in your brain, and it's also another thing to write it digitally on your phone. What I do is I write a lot of stuff on my phone and then I transfer it to my planner. When you actually write it and then when you go back to whatever you wrote, it's like, oh, I didn't do that. Like, why didn't I do that? And it keeps you very accountable. So that's why I'm like, my plan, I cannot live without my planner. Like I'll go crazy.
How often do you go back over the past planners?
Well, I'll go through the one for the year like all the time. Like, but I think the last time I went through all of them was maybe like a month ago. And then so when I went through it a month ago, I made another list of everything that I was missing in those planners and was like, damn, like where do I start? But again, you can't do everything at once, but I can cross off the agency thing. I can cross off the Instagram thing. Like there's just even as little as getting that verification on Instagram has been in my planner. And it's not that I want it just so I could be like, oh, I have it. I'm like, no, I want it because it's been a goal and I just want to cross that damn thing off my planner so I can move on to the next thing and not think about it's one less thing that like I have to like accomplish, if you will. So
knowing everything you know now, do you feel like following your passion is a good advice?
Yeah, I think it's the greatest advice you'll ever receive, because when you follow your passion, it's hard, it's a long road, and it sucks sometimes, but it is so worth it when you can wake up and know like, I'm actually doing what I really wanted to do since I was a kid, and I'm happy. To me, it's not about, again, another conversation I had where someone was talking about like, oh, like I think I just want to make this much a year. It was my brother. So my brother and I, we're totally different. He's not in entertainment. Like he does like marketing. He loves like management stuff. And he's totally, when I get to that point, like, my brother's going to be the only person who's going to be running my stuff, because it's like I'm not going to trust anybody.
Right.
But we talked about like, if we could make, because we always talk about how like we want my parents to retire, but we just know they won't do it, like unless we're like literally like millionaires. They won't do it. It's my dad's mentality is, even when I asked him, he said, well, I'm trying to make this much, and then when you guys both get married and stuff, we'll sell the house, and then you guys can split that 50-50. And then in my retirement, I make this much, so I can still send this much for you. I'm like, why are you thinking about like trying to still provide for us when we're married and have kids? But that's just how like my parents are. So my brother and I were texting yesterday. He's like, I don't know, maybe if like we had like $1 million and then maybe they would retire. And then he's like, I can't believe you were making this much at whatever, like that would be perfect. I'm like, no, because if someone were to give me that offer and said, hey, I have this job for you for this amount of money, I'm like, I would not take it. I would never do that ever again, because I was miserable.
Is there a salary that would make you sell out and work corporate again?
Fuck no.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not $5 million a year?
No. Wow. No, because it's one, what do I need $5 million a year for? Like, what am I really, if I'm
just throwing a number out there. They say everyone has a number.
No, you know? I know, but it's like, but even like, what I learned is like, yes, it's nice, to have money where, you're stable and you're comfortable, but at what expense does that come with? Exactly. So if someone came to me and said, I'll pay you $5 million a year, okay, but what do I have to do for that $5 million a year?
I look at it as the price of your freedom.
Yeah.
And to me, that's priceless.
Yeah. I'm like, so no, if someone offered me $5 million a year, but then I had to not do the stuff I enjoy doing, no. I'm like, I'll go back and Uber. I can't do it. I did it. I feel, not that I sold myself out when I took that corporate job, because it wasn't. It was corporate, but it was not corporate, because it was still with the app. We had Lil Wayne as a partner. I was still working with artists, but it just required a lot of my time. So it was so worth it. I learned so much in that year and a half that I was with him, but I would never do it again because I'm like, okay, cool. I was able to pay my bills and not stress about it, but how many blogs did I put up? How many interviews did I do? I put all of that on hold just to have that. So no, I would never do that ever again. Like, I'll get that 5 million doing what I want to do, even if it's like when I'm 80. Like,
well, do you think it's important at the beginning of someone's career to possibly take that kind of opportunity where they can learn more from?
So no, when I, even when I tell people like, oh, you should follow your passion, I am in no way saying don't take a job and be like homeless. I'm not saying that at all. I've always worked for people or under a company full time. That's always what it was. You're going to get that experience. It's just if you're going to work a corporate job or do another job, don't put your stuff on hold. So if you have to work a 9 to 5, work your 9 to 5. But okay, if you want to be a rapper, if you want to be an artist, from 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock the next day, work on your music. So it's like, if you're going to be corporate, there's nothing wrong with being corporate. I'm at a point now where it's like, if someone offered me a corporate job, but I've worked so hard with my stuff, it's like, okay, you can offer me corporate, but I don't need it right now. I can keep focusing on this and make, the bare minimum. To me, as long as I can pay my bills, which I'm even crazy with that, with like my budgets and stuff. If I can pay my bills, I'm fine. I don't need anything extra. I don't care if it's check to check. That's like how I was living, like all throughout LA. Like, I never had extra money. Like, I didn't have savings. Like, everything went to that, but I was so happy because it's like, I'm doing what I want to do. I don't care if someone's making way more than me or they had a nicer car or whatever. I'm like, you're not happy though. I'm like, I'm doing what I want to do. So
it's so funny because Jamie Adler on the last episode said the exact same thing. Like, the richest people he knows could be the most miserable. And, for you to, like I said, I feel like you're ahead of your time in terms of your thought process, because a lot of people have to get to that point where they work 100 hours a week for 20 years to get to that point where they're making, they've got millions in the bank. Yeah. And then they're like, what have I been doing this all for?
But are you happy?
My life is miserable.
Exactly. Right. It's like, that's like deep. It's like that 5 million offer or whatever offer that is. I'm like, what are you sacrificing to get that check? And that's why I said, of course, 5 million is a lot of money, but when I look at it, I'm like, what am I really like? Watch, I do get a 5 million offer next week.
We'll see what happens. Jen.
Yeah. So now I'm like,
I'll never hear from you again.
Right. But I'm thinking about what do you need 5 million a year for? Like, what do you spend $5 million?
Well, maybe you do it for 3 years, put some money away, and then do what you want to do.
Yeah, but see, and that was my mentality too when I was at the corporate job. I'm like, okay, I can save my money. But this is my other thing, which is like really bad, because I got a bonus when the app launched, and it was a great bonus. But guess what I did with it as soon as I got it? I paid off all my credit card debt, and then me and my brother and then my 3 cousins are very, very close. My cousin Leah, she moved to Hawaii with her husband because he was stationed there, and she had just had a son that no one met yet, and it was his first birthday. And I knew she was sad, because it's like, you're by yourself in Hawaii, that is not close, and it's not easy to fly there. Mm-hmm. So when I got this bonus, the only thing I did was pay off my credit cards, and then I just booked us all tickets to go to Hawaii, and we surprised her. And then there went that bonus. It's like I didn't save anything. I'm all about I like enjoying life. So even if I got $5 million, I don't think it would last, because I would end up buying my dad a car or paying off whatever. And it's that's my weakness.
But that's not just you. I mean, I think that's everyone. As you make more money, you spend it. It's like, now I can, now I can get a little bit of a nicer car. Maybe now I could take out a mortgage.
There was this crazy preaching where he said, he's like, all money does is it just gives you more access to be who you are. So if you're someone who likes to gamble and you get millions of dollars, you're just going to gamble that $1 million. If your weakness is, I don't know, Panda Express. I'm looking at Panda Express right now. You're just going to spend all your money on Panda Express. So that's why I'm kind of happy I never got to that, because, again, that's another one of those things I have to work on. I was happy, though, when I paid off my credit cards. But then, look, I quit the job, and then I racked up my credit again. Right. So now I'm, focused on that. But now I know better next time. I'm like, okay, next time you get a bonus or something, put it to the side, because what if for some reason you're going to not have a job again, and then you're not going to want to Uber or Postmates? Like, you'll have something soon. So I did that, but I love that I experienced that already at however old I was. So
do you embrace failure? Do you feel
I
like
do.
that's what I get from you?
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean that in the best way.
Because
Like I said, that's maturity, right? Like when you're younger, failure is something you're afraid of. You're maybe embarrassed about.
Yeah.
When you get older, you realize you're never going to get anywhere if you don't fail.
I embrace failure because you learn so much from it. So is it really a failure? It's like,
It's a process.
Yeah. So, man, I've had so many failures, but I'm grateful I failed at those things very early, because you're not going to catch me failing in the next chapter of my life. Like I said, that was chapter 1 of my life, but it's like those failures make you who you are. Those failures prove that you have the balls to go after what you want. Like, so I'm like, I embrace failures. That's why I'm very open about it, and like where I messed up and what I did wrong, because it's like there's nobody that's perfect. So it's like, why are you even embarrassed about it? Like, at least you tried. A lot of people won't even try.
So if you had to start again without your network, but knowing everything you know now, what would you do to be able to pay your rent in the next 30 days?
Probably Postmates. If I didn't know anybody, like,
right.
Or you mean like getting a different job that has nothing to do with like.
I mean, just how would you're basically starting from scratch without a network. You still have all the knowledge you have, but
to go after what I want, or like
you got to pay your rent in 30 days.
I'm telling you, that Postmates and that, I would literally only have to go like one night, and I would make my money in that. Because I'm telling people, again, imagine how I was talking in this interview is exactly how I was talking in those Uber rides or those Lyft rides. That's why everybody loved me.
Right.
It was like, I was giving advice. Like, it was crazy. I had people looking at my YouTube. I had so many people follow me, like, just based off of that. But no, and then Uber was like, if I had to pay like my phone bill's like what, $100. If I had to pay my phone bill tomorrow, but I had nothing, I literally would just have to do my rides and then like direct deposit right away, and I'd be able to pay it tomorrow. Yeah. So it's like, that's what I would do if I had nothing, and that's what I did do when I had nothing. So it's like,
so I mean, basically, to me, the point is you just can't be embarrassed of hard work.
Exactly,
and you can't be embarrassed about what other people are going to think about you.
No, if anything, like, they should be more embarrassed because they wouldn't do what you'd be willing to do.
Right.
So it's like, I didn't care if I really ran into him. I was like, cool. Like, you see me, if I drop off your Postmates. I dropped a Postmates off to that Jerry Perp Drink guy.
Who?
Jerry Perp Drink. He was like a Viner, but no. Wait,
okay.
Why didn't I think to tell this story? One of my first Postmates deliveries was to Janae Aiko, so I know exactly where she lives. And her name on her thing, I'm not going to say what it was. It didn't say Janae Aiko,
right.
But it was just funny. Like, I have a Postmates story to tell one day and be like, well, I delivered to Janae Aiko, but it's funny because how many times have I been around her? How many people have I interviewed that's around? I'm friends with the people at Def Jam, but I delivered her Postmates. She doesn't know I did that. Def Jam doesn't know I did that, but I did it. And it's a funny, like, how does that even happen? Like, I was laughing too, because it was funny because she was at the door and I was like kind of smirking because it's like, I totally know who she is. And I didn't know if she had known my face from, like in passing before or whatever. But it was just funny because I'm like, see, Postmates. And then that idea again, I'm like, see, I could just ask her if she'd be down for Postmates because I already delivered her Postmates, so she knows what it is. But it just ended up not happening. But
yeah. Well, see, and I haven't shared this story either, but right when I got out of college, I moved to LA. Yeah. And a friend of mine got a job delivering packages for the Sony studios.
Oh, nice.
And so I was just, taking it all in, just trying to like make connections. But who wants to connect with someone just delivering their package?
Yeah.
And I ended up eventually taking a job that was like a street marketing job.
Okay.
This dates me a little bit, but this is like when people barely were using internet.
Okay, it like dial up.
They had dial up, I think.
Okay.
So stamps.com at the time, we were trying to get businesses to install this for free.
Okay.
Like I was just trying to convince people, put this on your computer.
Yeah.
Like random businesses. I couldn't get anyone for like 3 weeks. I'm going around doing this, and I finally realized this is not the job for me. And also at that point, I thought I would never be a salesman, and basically that's what I do every day.
Yeah,
now,
that's what you do every day, and you're great at it. So it's like,
you never know. Well, one thing I've learned is being a salesman doesn't mean you have to be like the guy with the witty one-liner.
Yeah.
You just have to be yourself, you know, and people have to feel like they trust you and they like talking to you. And, you know, I'm just trying to be genuine. That's the best I can do because I can't be that guy with the witty one-liner.
Yeah.
Even though every once in a while I wish I could pull one out, you know?
Put this on your computer. It genuine. That's what I'm saying. Being genuine, like, that's all you need to be. Like, whoever you are, like, that's one thing that ties into both career and personal. Like, just be you. Be yourself. Allow people to accept you for you. Allow people to love you for you. Because if you are not the person that you really are, it's just going to bite you in the ass later, like in the long run. So it's like, that's why I'm just like, look, this is who I am. This is what it is. Because I don't have time for that. I don't have time for, let me just like be fake just to, you know, play the game and get to like wherever I need to get. Like, I've just always been myself. So be genuine and authentic.
Yeah. That's a great place to, I want to leave off, but I have one more question. Okay. And the reason I want to ask you is because I don't really know your music taste. So this is kind of I mean, I know you're in hip hop, but I don't really know your taste. So if an evil dictator took over the world and banned all art, but allowed each person to keep one album and one book, what would you choose?
Fuck. So it's funny because I don't know. Album wise, I don't know, because the last time I listened to a full album was Big Sean's, not the last one. Which one, or was it his mixtape? It was Big Sean, though. I can't think what it was. That's the last album I actually listened to, but that's not the one that I would keep. I think it would have to be a Kanye album, maybe 808s and Heartbreak, but I don't know because it's like, I don't like listening to full albums, which is so
Would it be a mixtape?
Which is so fucked up.
Would you just have to put a bunch of singles on one?
Yeah, I'd have to put, because this is my music taste. I love everything on the radio. I especially love like pop music. I love like relationship type music. I'm a Cancer, so like I'm just like an emotional, like I love that stuff. So it's funny because it's like I'm not a hip hop head. Like I love hip hop. Like, so if I had to pick one album and I could only pick, it would probably be a Kanye album, just because it's like I fucking love Kanye. But no, like I love so many different types of music. I love everything from hip hop to pop to R&B to like, I don't even know. Like I don't have a specific like, just anything on the radio, which is messed up, but you know, that's why my interviews work. Cause I'm not listening to your whole album.
Yeah, but it's just funny. Someone in the music business, this is the first question that kind of stumped you out of all of these. I know. Like, oh, what do I listen to?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you know what? That's what throws people off a lot, but that's what worked for me. It's like,
come back to being yourself. That's who you are.
My craziest person that I met, that I had to ask somebody which one he was in Chicago, and I'll end on this. It was in Chicago. NERD was having a meet and greet, and Pharrell and Chad were there, and they're like,
you didn't know the difference in those two?
So
that's amazing.
So I go in, and they're like, oh, just introduce yourself to Pharrell, because obviously Pharrell is Pharrell. Now I know that. So I'm like, okay. So I go in there. I just see two fucking people sitting on the thing. I'm like, which one is he? So I go over there, introduce myself, but the meet and greet was so chaotic. I ended up working the meet and greet because too many fans were going up to him. So I ended up regulating the thing where I was having fans give me the item, and I was giving it to Pharrell, who was then sliding it to Chad, and then they were autographing it and then take the picture and go. I didn't know who he was. I have so many pictures with him. And then later over time, I'm like, wait, I knew the music. I know the music. I just can't tie in the person. Like, so that was my biggest thing. Like, I didn't know who Pharrell was. I still haven't interviewed him, but like, I love Pharrell. Like, I love all his like production and like everything. But it was just funny because I really went in there like, which one is he? Like, and I didn't know. So, and then if I had to interview him, none of my questions would have been anything about music. It probably would have been about him being half Filipino, because I'm Filipino, and I would have been like, can you even cook Filipino food? Like, what, have you been to the Philippines? It'd be stuff like that. Yeah. It wouldn't be about his music. So that was probably my funniest. Like, how do you not know who Pharrell is and you working in?
It's pretty recognizable.
Oh, and then another one. Sorry. The other one was when I was supposed to interview Pusha T and Malice. So, in this for Clips.
Right.
And they're like, I had to, one, use a fake ID to get in because I was only 20 when this happened. And they're like, oh, this is when Play Class just came out. And they're like, oh, you got to interview both of them. They're twins. I'm freaking out because I'm like, fuck, they're twins? Like, and then I have all these questions because this was the time they were giving me music questions. They're like, ask Pusha T this, ask Malice this. I'm like, cool. I'm going to ask the wrong twin, like the wrong question. So I'm freaking out. And I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, somebody else do it. So I was going to have really somebody else do it. They're like, no, you have to do it. So I'm like, great. So we're sitting in the back of the club, and then it ended up only being Pusha T. And then when I did that interview, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I know the questions because it's right here, like, just for him. When we did that interview, he accidentally spilled he was signing to Good Music in our interview, and it ended up being an interlude for his first mixtape with Good Music.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know who he was, though, because I was freaking out. But even though they're twins, they look nothing like each other. Like,
right.
It's like one has hair, the other one doesn't have hair. So it was just funny because it was like, those are my two moments where it's like, I didn't know what to do, and I'm freaking out. Didn't realize how big Pusha T was, and then over time, obviously, after my first interview, and I'm like, wait, what's Good Music? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then so when that came out, and then I had that mixtape sent to me, they're like, Jen, you're the interlude. I'm like, what's Good Music? And they're like, fucking Kanye. I'm like, oh, like, okay, like, that's cool. So it always worked for me because I didn't know. So
Yeah.
it's not, and that's the thing, I'm never going to get tricked in an interview where if someone asks me, like, have you heard the thing? I'm like, no, I haven't. When I did the Ty interview, they asked me, like, did you listen to the whole album? I was at the listening party in my Hulk, like, little boy's costume, and it was the label and his manager, and they're like, hey, so have you listened to the whole album? And then I just, like, smirked and was like, not yet. And then they, like, shook their head. I'm like, hey, at least I didn't lie to you and say, like, I listened to the whole thing. I think it's fucking amazing.
You should specify that was Halloween, that you were in a little Hulk
It was
boy
Halloween,
outfit.
yeah.
just
For the
to
Halloween.
clarify, that's not how you normally go out.
That's what I wear every day.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It just works for me because it's genuine. You're going to respect someone more that's like, oh, no, I actually didn't listen to it yet,
Yeah.
but I'm at your listening
Yeah,
party.
because people blow smoke so much in this industry.
And I won't.
And I hate being in a meeting with, like, I've been in meetings with agents that are just like, it's so amazing. I loved it
and it's
so
like,
much. And
but is it?
you can you can see through it. So, like, okay, what's your favorite song?
Yeah.
The fifth one.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
what
like,
I'm saying. Like, I can't.
just be honest. I mean, I think people respect you more for that.
Yeah, and so, but that's why the conversations end up being way funnier. Like, and that's always, it's weird. I never would have thought I'd be in hip hop, but it's crazy. Like, I know why I'm in hip hop. I'm in hip hop because I'm not interested in that life. I don't really know anything about it, but it works for me because it's that curiosity of, like, who are you as a person? Like,
Yeah.
But because they're so big, it's like, well, they're huge and they're known for their music, but I'm bringing out, like, a whole different person to them.
Well,
like, in
they're
interviews.
also, I think, used to everyone just assuming they're a certain person because of what they see on TV and not
Exactly.
really getting to know them, not caring to get to know them.
Yeah.
So it's probably a nice change of pace for them.
Yeah, so I love it. Like I said, I just have to get back. Even if it doesn't get a lot of views, I'm like, I know how to bring out, I make people comfortable enough where I can learn so much and people can learn so much eventually. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then I have my show. And then who knows what I'll be doing on that show, but it'll be funny because I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to do like a playback of all the interviews. When I interview I'm going to have to tell them, like, you know, I didn't know who you were, but I worked your whole event.
So, all right. So where can people find you online?
So my website is just jendeleon.com, and then all my socials are just Jen_Deleon, Deleon, because no one knows how to spell it. And that's it.
Now they do.
Yep, now they do.
And if you could send one tweet that everyone in the world could see, what would it be?
follow your passion. That's seriously, it's, and I didn't even tell you that story. I don't even know what time is it. I don't even know like what.
You got an interview soon. No, we're good.
Okay. So I'll just tell this last story. The reason I moved to LA was I came here to visit two of my best friends that moved out here, set up some interviews. And I remember it was a manager at Interscope, and I was doing an interview with the artist, and then he had asked me, like, so what do you want to do? And I said, I want to have my own show. And he's like, then why are you in Chicago? And usually when I tell people I want to have my own show, they're usually fascinated, like, oh, really? Like, about what? But this guy was just like, why are you in Chicago? I'm like, shit, I don't know. Like, because that's where I'm from. And he's like, if you could get that much done in Chicago, imagine how much more you can get done in LA where everybody is. I'm like, good point. So I was on a train going back to the hotel, and I was with my best friend, James, at that time. And I was just sitting in silence, and then I started like praying about it. Like, I'm not one of those where like you can tell I'm praying. Like, I could literally just be dozing off and you think I've just like lost my train of thought. But so I said, I was like, God, for some reason, I feel like I have to make a decision like right now if I should move to LA or not. So do I leave everything at home, my family, my friends, and like I already started there, I don't know anybody here, or do I move here? And I'm like, can you please like just give me some kind of sign? Because for some reason, like I know I have to make this decision right now I don't know why. Like I just did. So we got off the train, start walking, and then we see this homeless lady screaming at people and throwing shit. Like, it was so weird. I'm like, I definitely do not want to walk by you. So tried to cross the street, but then another train came, so I had to walk by her. So I walked by her, and you know when you tell people like, don't look now, but then they totally look, or you're like, so
Right.
yeah. So I'm telling myself, don't look at her, don't look at her, don't fucking look at her. Like, and I keep walking. And then of course I make eye contact with her, and as soon as I made eye contact with her, she says, follow your passion. And it was in a creepy gremlin voice. And I'm like, I like froze. James was probably like 5 feet ahead of me.
So you trusted the crazy lady on the street.
Trusted the crazy lady. Because then James goes, what did she just say to you? I was like, she said, follow your passion. But the timing of it was, I literally was on this train and said, God, can you give me some kind of sign? And then this crazy homeless lady said, look me in the eye, and said, follow your passion. And then just kept walking off. So right when I got back to the hotel, that's when I called my parents and said, I'm going to move to LA. It was May 2012 when I did this. And I was like, I'm going to move to LA. I didn't tell them why. I didn't tell them what happened. And they just said, okay. And then I moved here. And then that's why I did it. I'm like I said, things don't just happen. So I'm very like, if in my gut I feel like something's right, I'm going to do it. Like, it doesn't matter. No one has to convince me. If I feel it's right, I'll do it. If I don't feel it's right, I'm not moving. Like, I'm just going to sit there and be like, nope, because too much has happened in my life where I know like what to do and what not to do. And I trust like my gut all the time and my heart all the time, because it's like every time I have listened to it, look at what's happened. I'm like, who would ever listen to a crazy lady? Like,
amazing. It can come from the most random places.
Yeah. So that
just
was,
pay attention.
And that's the thing. It's like, you really, if you ask, you speak it into existence, and you pay attention, like, and that's how I've lived my whole life. I'm like, I'm not moving unless I feel like this is the right move to do it. And I feel like every move I've made up to this point, even the quote unquote failures or mistakes, that was still something that needed to happen. And it was part of the process. So I don't regret anything. I don't, I learned from it. And now I'm so excited for what's next, because there's no way I'm going to mess it up. Like, there's no way I did everything already. I'm like, I know what to do different now. And that's how I know. I'm kind of like anxious, because I'm like, oh shit, something crazy is about to happen. And whatever I'm thinking, it's going to be something way bigger than that. So there's no point in even thinking it. Because like I said, even with the agency thing, I didn't think that was going to happen yesterday. Like, that was the most random, like, we weren't even scheduled to sit with him for anything that had to do with us. It was literally to meet, with Creed and talk about that stuff. And then it turned into, and then I just get this call on the way home, like, hey, we have to go at this time when I'm back from out of the country. I'm like, okay, but didn't think that was going to happen. But I don't know what's going to happen next. It's going to be scary. I'm going to get a $5 million offer. It won't be for a corporate job. It's going to be for like
something you want to do.
Like,
that's what I'm hoping.
You know what? If that happens, that's going to be so creepy, because it probably will happen. And then I'm going to tell you like, hey, you're going to be the first person that knows. I'm going to be like, you got to get a commission off of this because you spoke it into existence.
If I could get a commission for speaking things into existence, that'd be the best job ever.
Seriously.
I'd be coming up with all sorts of shit.
Yeah. So yeah, probably that tweet would be like, follow your passion, or like, don't ever like give up, because I'm telling you, anything's possible. It's like, you got to think, if you work at something enough, like, why wouldn't it work out?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So that's my take. I'm like, I'm just going to keep working on it until it happens.
So don't give up out there. Keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much, Jen.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Thanks again for tuning in, and thanks again to Jen for being on the show. If you've enjoyed what you heard, spread the word. Subscribe on the podcast app. Check out the back episodes on focusednoise.com. Check us out on facebook.com/the Indie Playbook. Once again, till next time, peace.